Hello, welcome to this week's live video, and today I'm going to be talking about anxiety about our children's future, or indeed anybody that we love. So Marie and I had the second in our series of parenting webinars last night, and we talked about this topic. So I thought I would talk about it again here to hopefully bring it to a wider audience. So as parents, feeling anxiety about our children's future can be quite a common experience. And even though it's a common experience, it is one I think that we can understand a little bit more deeply, that can bring us some freedom from it. So particularly if your child maybe has a diagnosis of something or is struggling with something, such as relationships at school or schoolwork or revising for exams or getting a job or having a relationship if they're older children, or their health, then that can often send us as parents, because we love them so deeply, into feeling really concerned about what the future holds for them. And that can bring with it a lot of anxious thinking, a lot of busy mind, a lot of overthinking about how we can help them, about how we can guide them, and about how we can help prevent whatever it is we're fearing happening for them. And this doesn't have to be about your children. This could be about anybody that you love, or even for yourself. So the thing to know, and I think we all logically know this, we logically know that the future, we can't tell the future. We don't have a crystal ball, even if that worked, to know that how our child is now means something for the future. And what tends to happen is our thinking, our mind, innocently, can really start to go there with, this is the problem that my child has now, I can't find a solution to it, or I'm trying this and it isn't working, and what does this mean for their future? And we start to see into quite a bleak, generally, if we're feeling anxious about it, quite a bleak outcome for them, or a difficult outcome, or a painful outcome for them. And even though I think we know this intellectually, we don't always know it more deeply. That all that's happening for us is that we've gone down a rabbit hole with our mind, we're experiencing lots of anxious thinking, and we're scaring ourselves with our thinking. So, my child isn't very good at building relationships at school. This means he or she is going to not have any friends. This means that he or she is never going to find a partner. They're never going to be able to get on at work because they're struggling to build relationships. They're going to be a failure. They're going, and it can go to some quite scary places. And innocently, we are in this moment with our child as they are, and scaring ourselves about the future. And sometimes I think that we hang on to that anxious thinking, or we keep going with the anxious thinking because we believe that it has some benefit, that if I can think this through, I'll find the solution. And what I have found is that when I'm in that anxious state of mind, there is very rarely, not saying ever, but very rarely, any useful solutions come from that. Because when we're feeling really scared about the future, or we're scaring ourselves with our thoughts, or we're really anxious about it, it means that our mind is all whirred up. We've got lots and lots of thought about whatever the given subject is. And this tends to just make our mood low, understandably. We're always feeling our thinking. And so that's going to bring about an anxious mood, or a low mood, or, just a really busy mind. And from that place, the best solutions don't tend to come. As I said, I'm not saying they don't ever come, but they don't tend to come. And so what I've found is being able to recognise that my mind innocently has gone off on a trajectory into the future, that I cannot possibly know what the future holds for my child, for my loved ones, for myself. We've only ever got this moment to deal with. And that continuing down that path is not going to bring any kind of solution that's probably going to be useful. So just recognising the state that I'm in, and allowing myself some space to wait for that to change is a useful first recognition, if you like, or a first step. So this isn't, I'm not giving you a technique, I'm just talking about how our experience is created and what we can do when we find ourselves in this really busy, anxious thinking about the future. But what's also really good to recognise is that when we're in, hi Denise, when we are in anxious thinking about the future, about our child, it really impedes our ability to deeply listen to them in the now, in the present, with how they are experiencing their life, whatever the problem is that we believe that they have. Because when we've got a lot on our minds, quite naturally our ears are listening to what's going on in our minds and not actually deeply listening to our child. And listening to our child, I find, is one of the ways that we're going to find the best solution that suits them as an individual. And we can properly hear them, what's going on for them. So it's really important to wait until that anxious thinking has settled down before we have a conversation, if indeed we need to, with our child. So I'm not saying that we do nothing. This isn't about being passive and just hoping for the best. It's about seeing the reality of it. Is that when we're caught up in our own thinking about it, that's going to bring feelings with it, all of that anxiety about what the future holds for them, we're not in reality. We're not in the flow of life. We are in some imagined movie in our head about what might happen or what might not happen. And being in reality, I find, is always a much better place to be in the now and to be present with our child. So I want you to know that this is all really normal. I know as a parent, my mind can go there about anxieties about people that I love and about my son. But we don't have to stay stuck there. And we don't have to continue believing that anxious thinking, ruminating, overthinking stuff has any real value for us. If we see or if we believe, either consciously or unconsciously, that anxious thinking or ruminating or overthinking has some benefit, that it's going to bring some solution, then of course we'll continue down that path. But when we can see that actually from a settled place and a quieter mind, our wisdom is able to shine through, our intuition is able to shine through. And actually that's much more useful than our own sort of personal thought that we're pulling out and going down the rabbit hole with. When we really know that within ourselves, it becomes easier to just know that we're experiencing some of our favourite anxious thinking, know that it does become a bit habitual, and that we can just gently look away from that. And at some point, our wisdom will speak to us, our intuition, our knowing, our common sense. It doesn't need to be a sort of lightning bolt of wisdom, it's just within us all of the time. And that's really the other piece of this for me, is that when we're thinking about the future, about what might happen, so let's say you have got a child with behavioural problems, you're worried about their ability to build relationships and what that might mean for their future. Even if that were to come to fruition, that they did struggle in 5 years' time with building relationships, we have an in-the-moment, real-time intelligence within us. We have access to this all of the time. And our wisdom today tells us what we need today. And in 5 years' time, we will have that wisdom that is perfect for 5 years' time. But we can't know that now. We can only know that then. That intelligence, you can call it the divine, you can call it creation, you can call it God, you can call it whatever you like, that we're always connected to, will always be there for us in the future as much as it is here in this moment, in the now. So what we think our wisdom is telling us now that might be useful for the future, invariably won't be, because in 5 years' time it will have something very different to say to us. But that's been really useful for me when I've worried about if that happens, how would I cope? Or if X, Y, Z occurs, what would I do? I don't need to know that now. I only need to know that if and when that situation occurs, and my intelligence will guide me, because it's always guiding all of us 100% of the time. And even if something difficult were to happen with our children, with our loved ones, we often think because most people may have an anxious or a scared or a fearful reaction to that, that's true for everybody. But actually, when we have something challenging happen in our lives, it doesn't have to be met with anxiety. It doesn't have to be met with fear. It doesn't have to be met with any emotion that is not serving us. Just because it's normalish that most people feel that, it doesn't mean that 100% of the time everybody feels it. And no situation has to be met with anxiety or fear. And invariably, because those emotions are pretty strong within us and we have a lot of thinking on our mind that's creating those feelings, it kind of blocks our ability to see the wood for the trees and to really see a solution, if there is one, to whatever challenge we're being presented with. So just to summarise, when we find ourselves in anxious thinking, we can just know that this is flowing through us at the moment. Even though it can feel very real that it's giving us important information or it's something useful for us to do, it absolutely isn't. It isn't useful. It may be normal for us to go there, but it isn't useful. And we can just gently, when we notice, I'll just get my snow globe, when we notice that our mind is all shook up and we've got lots of anxiety or fear or scared feelings go around us, that when we're like this, all we need to do is just recognise this is what's going on in our mind about our children and about the future, and just allow it to settle, knowing that we absolutely don't know what's going to happen in the next moment, let alone what's going to happen in 1 month, 2 months, 3 years, 5 years. That isn't down to us. That's down to the life force flowing through us. It's not down to us personally. And then also to know that we will have everything that we need within us, because we're always connected to that wisdom to deal with whatever the future may bring us. That's always there for us. We can rely on it. It's almost like the seat that we sit in. It's part of us. Yes, Denise. Oh, the snow globe. I do love the snow globe. And also just to be really kind to yourself. If you're experiencing lots of anxiety about your child, if you're experiencing lots of anxiety about yourself or anything, or anybody in your life that you love, just be kind to yourself to know this is an experience passing through. It won't be here forever. It's your thinking about those things that's bringing it, not the actual things themselves. And that can be a real relief to know that. So I hope this is helpful in some small way. So Marie and I have one webinar left next Tuesday of our parenting series, and you're very welcome to join us for that if you feel that would be useful, and you can sign up via my website, which is on the coaching groups page. So it's www.lindseyelliott, which is LindseyElliott.co.uk, and then /coaching-groups. And on there you can register for the event, and then you'll also receive the recordings of the previous 2 weeks. So yeah, I hope this has been helpful. I hope you have a wonderful week until next week, and thank you for being here and watching, Denise. And yeah, I'll look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye.